I can tell by the age of the audience that some of you still read newspapers. But most of you recognize that the newspapers are smaller and smaller and smaller. And the number of investigative reporters are shrinking faster and faster and faster. There's even a philanthropist who just opened a shop here in New York called, it's called News Publica. It's an investigative reporting group where he's hired 25 reporters to do investigative work. We are living in a time of transition from newspapers to computer information, and there are some challenges there because you can't trust everything that happens to get on Wikipedia and YouTube and all of that kind of thing. I think those of us in the environmental community have to do a better job. Here's what I would recommend. I think that we need to understand a word which I invented a few years ago called ego disarmament. And what I'd like to see is all of the environmental groups link with all the good government groups and have an ego disarmament conference where institutional egos were set at the door and people came together and deep-framed the issues of water and the environment and the justice issues surrounding them, and understand the connection between the passion that we have on these issues and the fact that we elect people to public office who often are not elected to serve the public's interest. These are going to be really challenging times, and we're going to have to be much more aggressive. I have 5 honorary doctorate degrees. I only have 4 arrests for civil disobedience. And I think Dr. Martin Luther King had the right attitude that some of these things actually lend themselves to finding ways to get media to cover the issues. Having a forum like this tonight, you don't see CNN, you don't see ABC or NBC, and if it's not on television, the masses of people have not really seen it. Here's what I would suggest for the Sierra Club and the League of Conservation Voters and the League of Women Voters and Common Cause. Let's put 100,000 email addresses together in New York, and let's divide those up by zip code and area code and be sophisticated enough to really mobilize people by region and by district and use some of the new techniques. Obama did it in his campaign. I think good government groups need to figure out how to do it. Obama, at the end of his 4 years of being president, will have between 25 and 50 million email addresses. He will not have to rely on the New York Times to get his message out. We're still relying on the mass media to get our messages out. We've got to find other ways to infiltrate YouTube and Twitter and all of those systems. And one good thing, hire some people who are under 30 to help understand how those systems work.
Okay, does anyone have a, oh, by the way, Bill Murray is the aide or the representative of James Gennaro, who couldn't make it, so he will be answering any questions regarding the City Council. Does anyone have a question they'd just like to shout out?
Well, I wonder if Assemblyman Colton could tell us more about the state of play on this issue. Who are the companies? Have they begun the ULURP process? Have they been buying or leasing land? What's specifically going on that's triggering this concern?
There's a number of companies. Chesapeake is one. They have been entering into leases. They've been entering into leases with landowners. Some of the leases are very unconscionable. Sometimes the landowner doesn't even understand, what they are permitting them to do. So one of the things that has triggered it is the fact that these leases have been entered into, and they've entered into leases including in the areas around the watershed. So that basically is what is, triggering the concern, and they do intend to start drilling possibly within a year. And so a decision, has to be made in terms of, what permits they're going to be required to get, what studies have to be done, and then the public is going to have to very quickly organize to make sure that government does not permit them to just run roughshod and do this.
Okay, does somebody else?
So why can't this land be...
wait, sorry.
Why can't this land be like a living treasure that belongs to people that cannot be sold?
Why can't it be like a living treasure that cannot be sold?
Like historical treasure that should not be taken.
Do you want to try that, or Jill? Or?
I think I will say that in terms of the real estate development, the Catskill Park and the Adirondack Park are both privately and publicly held land. There's a line around a large area, but the land within the area is partly owned by the public and partly owned by individuals, some very large landowners. So that's a delicate dance to preserve this wonderful gem while allowing individual landowners to control their own property. It's a delicate dance, and it's difficult to do. But my personal feeling is that anybody's water source, in terms of Marcellus Shale gas drilling, anybody's water source has to be sacrosanct. It has to be absolutely off limits. And when they can go horizontally for miles underground without even paying lease to the person who's above the well, how in the world can we control that unless we absolutely simply put it off limits?
Anyone else? Oh, right there.
I don't know if I really even need this. Is there a similar piece of legislation in the state Senate that you proposed with Assemblymember Brennan? And either way, what's the timeline for your bill? And also, if there was one presented in the state Senate, I have some interest from State Senator Schneiderman to put one forward.
I believe there is a matching bill in the Senate. I don't have the name of the sponsor of it in front of me. It's the bill, you can actually find it on the website, New York State Assembly website. If you look under bill number A1322, it will give you the matching bill number in the Senate.
What was that,
A1322, 1322. And that will give you the matching number.
All right, over here.
Wait, we have one here.
Oh, we got one there? Sorry, see, I'm jumping the gun, sorry.
I want to thank the excellent presentation by the members of the panel. And as a supplementary item of information as it relates to the protection of our watersheds, I would like to address the issue of the nuclear facility, Indian Point, a little over 20 miles from New York City, for which the owners Entergy have applied for a 20-year extension of their operating licenses. And the impacts and the potential impacts of any incident at that location would greatly affect our drinking water. And I wanted to raise that as part of the awareness campaigns. Thank you.
Okay. Is that mic on? I don't know, I can hear anyway. But I'll ask while you're going over there. What can we do to wake the DEP up that's been silent on Bel Air and silent on the Marcellus Shale? What can we do to wake them up? To send letters, or what? I mean, what is the most effective way? Or is the DEP, can it be woken up? I guess is the question.
Well, there's some evidence that I woke it up. But I think there's also some evidence that slowly inexorably went back to sleep. What I was saying is I think that the best way to go is to think of it as a city issue. And to go out to the mayor's administration through the Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability, because the mayor is very proud of his New York City Plan 2030, which unfortunately ignored this issue. And I think consistent with that spirit, the city should be held up to that. I mean, I think part of what's going on with DEP is that there's a totally unwarranted fear that if they come out too aggressively against any of this drilling, they may have taking lawsuits aimed at them. And I think the state feels that way too, so there's kind of this little dance that's going on where both sides are trying to get the other to be the first to pull the trigger. But I think the fear of a takings lawsuit is completely, inappropriate. I did 34 lawsuits on clean water and won them all on the principle the first thing government is responsible for doing is public health. Go to the Bloomberg administration should be made to understand that whatever else they've done that's good on sustainability, if they drop the ball on this one, that's what's going to be remembered.
Yes.